Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000 who consist of the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Um, so it's been a couple of weeks since I managed to upload the video. Um, like last weekend I became ill. I got a cold, and I was dealing with that for a few days. And the worst bit was like about 3-4 days. I got over that, even though you could probably still hear it now. and then I ended up putting, I think, in my hamstring or something in the lower back. So I've kind of like got this bit of back pain going on at the same time now. So I've been doing these exercises and so on and so forth. So Apostle Paul spoke about a thorn in the flesh. Obviously, we all get our particular ailments, and that's just obviously it kind of took me away from being able to sit down. I can't really sit down too long with the back pain, especially. It's a bit easier to be standing up or moving around. But I'm going to obviously give it a go now. But this is Hebrews chapter 4. It says here, for the word of the Most High is quick, it is powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, it says, and of the joints and the marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. It says, you go on to verse 13, it says, neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight. Speaking of the Most High, it says, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. So there's, you can't, obviously nothing in this world that is hidden. There's no secret corner. There's no, hidden passageway, some dark alley, some basement. There's, then you go into the level of your mind. You see people, there's like 8-9 billion people on the planet Earth, and you kind of judge what's within the mind of the people by what they say and what they speak, but people don't always speak what they think, and so then therein lies in the mind the secret corners and passageways, where these people keep particular things hidden about themselves. But you can't hide these things from the Most High. So the Most High knows everything. It says, for the word of the Most High is quick. Quick meaning awakening. To quicken the spirit, to awaken the spirit. So you can say things using the word of the Most High. If you have that ability, if you have the secrets, if you have the Holy Spirit, the understanding. There's a lot of people that claim to have it, but they don't. It says, for the word of the Most High is quick. So awaken the spirit. It's like a shock. It says powerful. It says sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit. So you'd be afraid of a man with a two-edged sword that can cut your flesh, but anybody could do that. Any I don't know, crackhead, any crazy person, anyone with not a lot of intelligence or skill or anything like that can easily just pick up a blade and cut your flesh. But who can cut the soul and the spirit? So you're gonna need to be on a high level to be able to cut soul and spirit. So it says, if the word of the Most High is quick, this is awakening. This is powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit. It says, and the joints, and of the joints and marrow. It says, and it is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So a discerner, if you discern, you're supposed to look at something and work it out. You're supposed to assess a situation, take all the various elements that are happening in this situation and be able to put them together and discern, Am I being lied to? Am I being told the truth? Obviously, that's a basic thing that we all do. Every human being has to discern things at certain times. When do you cross the road? Is it the right time to cross the road? Is it not the right time? But you see, using the word of the Most High, you can actually then go to a level where you can discern. It's a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So we understand, for example, we live in a society where people say certain things, but we understand what they really mean or what they really do. They have these particular secrets. A lot of the secrets about the agendas, we bring those out to you, and so on and so forth. But then you obviously have got people on the street. So when I was younger, for example, living in the UK, you used to receive a lot of like racial abuse. And so what it is, you got these Edomites, for example, we live in say, for example, in the 80s, for example, 70s, 80s, early 90s, these Edomites were living in their kingdom, which we still are. They had the rule. And then even the general people on the street, they had this a level of pride within them. And, the fact that their kingdom was at a strong point, there was, they had, how can I say it? They had, the Edomites were doing good in their Edomite kingdom. But now it's 2025. The Edomites are not doing good in their Edomite kingdom. Their Edomite kingdom is crumbling right before their eyes. A lot of them are complaining. They're seeing it happen and they're unhappy. But you see, in the last 25 years, you've had things like diversity and political correctness. You can't say certain things. You can't say racist things. I can easily pull up a public venue, and if somebody says something remotely racist, I can hold my hand up and say, hey, this man is being racist to me, and everybody will jump on it. Oh, you can't say that, mate. You can't say that. No, you can't get away with that, mate. Come on, come on. And they'll usher you out. Here it is. They've been trying to kick racism out of football since the 90s, and they're still trying to do it today. So what does that tell you? You can't get rid of it. Obviously, the true understanding of racism is really to believing that your race is superior to others, which is what everybody believes in the back of their mind at some point, for whatever reason. So, for various different reasons. So, in the 80s, for example, you had probably had it yourself. Like, this is where I grew up. This is London. And then, like, I was looking at it, this is Bush Corner. I remember living on this estate, right? So you got this, what they call in the UK, council estates, and it was from here. It was this whole area here, going all the way up to this high street. And it was just Edomites, pure Edomites, Edomites, as far as the eye could see. And then these people, where they had that, this is like they had their control. They had control over their community, over certain things. So even myself, being of non-Edomite skin, it was a problem living in this area. I used to live on this street, this Marlborough Road. I used to live on this corner. Now, what it is, I grew up basically in a Sikh family. So, Asian, Indian looking. And I could literally tell you on this whole estate at the time, there was one Asian family here, which was mine. And then you had one here. And that was it. So, we used to receive a lot of racial abuse, this, that, and the other. But then what it was, you see, in those times, it was funny because, see, this is where we go on to the lesson. You see, it's the Jakes, so-called black people, they would integrate with the Edomites a lot easier than, say, for example, Asian people. And so in this area where I grew up, for example, you have Edomites that will go to the local pub, and then the Jakes would go with them. And then so even though the Jakes received racist abuse here and there, various points, certain people, certain Edomites, they'd be all right with them. Oh no, he's my mate. He's my mate. He's all right. He's all right. Everybody's got one black friend. So you had that scenario, but at that point, the Asian, the so-called Asian, into the UK, was still because they would keep themselves to themselves. They open up their businesses, and then they live within their own community, so they don't really do what the Edomite does. They don't go to the places to drink and get smashed because their culture is completely different and it's strong. What was wrong with Jake is that Jake ain't got no culture because the culture got stripped from you. You see, and that's why then you found it easier to integrate with these Edomites and just do what they're doing. And fast forward to 2025, look at our people today. So, what I'm really looking at is the the difference between the culture. See, you're a Hebrew Israelite. You're basically, your culture is from the East. You see, where I've obviously grown up in a Western society, I've grown up in a Eastern household, and then everything in between, I've had interaction with it. So then you start to see the spectrum, and then you go, well, on one hand you got the East, and you've got these people that are a certain way, and then whether they're right or wrong, you've got various different types of nations. They've got their own different gods, this, that, and the other. That's you can go into a deeper level, but there's a certain level of mentality that you get out of people from the East, but then you get a completely different level of mentality out of people from the West, and that's where you have these contrasting views. The scriptures talking about talk about being spiritually drunk. Were we not all spiritually drunk before we came to the truth? We didn't understand this, we didn't understand that. Some of us believed in various different gods and religions and philosophies, or maybe no God at all, or whatever you believed in. And then the Most High wakes you up. When people go out, sometimes they go out and they drink all night, they get smashed, they're drunk, they wake up in the morning, and they don't know where they are. Where am I? How did I get here? And then they have to sort themselves out and find their way home. And so you're pretty much in the same situation spiritually, because the Most High has woken you up from that that drunken madness. And you wake up and you scratch your head and you look around you and you go, where am I? And you're in a Western society. This is far away from where you want to be or where you should be and who you really are. And this is a major problem to our people. So you fast forward up until today, we'll hold that thought there, and then you fast forward up until today, and then you've got this MOTB. This MOTB is coming in, and part of the MOTB, the whole play, obviously, as according to the scriptures, it's a device under the skin which will enable you to buy or sell within the worldwide financial system. It will be the only form of payment that you'll be able to use, and then at the same time, it will serve as a digital identification. So when you have that thought, you work back the trail, look around you. Immigration is a problem around the world. People are kicking off. Everybody's upset. This, that, and the other. And so you're seeing a result of that on the internet. So now when you go onto the internet, onto YouTube, for example, you can find, I watch these Irish videos, these people walking around Ireland. Irish do go back to the Jakes. But currently, you've got these people that look like Edomites walking around Ireland, with their cameras filming these immigrants. You've got them in the UK. These various people that they go to. Hang on. Where did I see it? History. I shouldn't really. I need to hold back because if they try and do me for the moving images. But you see here, illegals move into Dragonfly Hotel. So it happens in the UK. You got these Edomites that go out. They go to these hotels, And then they film it and they go, look, there's a whole bunch of immigrants moving in. We've got to save the country, this, that, and the other. And people go on the comment boards. So this is where those communities, when I used to live in that area in the 80s, I used to get chased down the street. They call you all sorts of names, Paki being one of them. So these same people that used to do all that, late 80s, early 90s, they couldn't do that when they got to the late 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And even today, if somebody acts remotely racist in public, I'm going to hold my hand up. I'm going to say, hey, everybody, he's being racist. And everybody's going to jump on his back because that's what they programmed into the mind of society. But these people still are out there. So the ones that were, ready to chase you down the street here, late 80s, early 90s, now they voice their comments and their views in comment boards like these types of videos that you're seeing. Taxpayer-funded luxury illegal migrants staying at some hotel. And what they do is they could just go and film a bunch of migrants moving into the hotel. And what I don't understand is, why don't you go and have it out with your politicians? See, it's almost like a setup. It's like it's designed to be a wind-up to the Edomites. They're creating uproars of the people when it comes to immigration. So ultimately, the order out of chaos. They're going to bring order very soon, which is going to be this MOTB. But then you go back here, for example, to this one. So what happened in this short here? You've got 3 women in hijabs fighting. They stop the car, they pull up, they get out, and one of them's got a shoe, and she's trying to clap the other one. So I'm not going to play it because they always punish me for playing video clips or whatever, music, whatever. So I'm not going to play it, but it's not really that important. What's important is what you start to see the people's opinions here. Now, I'm not here to defend Muslims because Muslims don't have the truth. I'm not here to defend Edomites because Edomites don't have the truth. I'm not here to defend anybody but the Hebrew Israelites because we have the truth. But in this particular aspect, watching a bunch of Muslims there, and then you're pretty much going to read now through some British, Edomite comments. We're spectators, and we have the truth, so we can see the wood from the trees. It's that back to that sword, a discerner of the thoughts. Remember, these people, like I say, in the 80s, they would chase you down the street, call you Paki. The last 20 years, they couldn't say nothing because of, this, that, and the other political correctness. That's why you have a lot more Asian and black people will attend, for example, like football games and stadiums, sports, the nightclubs, the social events. It's all fully mixed. They integrated the cultures when it comes to socializing, and then obviously you got these hardcore Edomites, for example, in the UK who are, feel like the country's losing its culture. But where did you get your culture from? That is the question in the first place. And so, like, you look on this comment board here, look, the port. This was the port. So this is an Edomite, British, looking at this. And then you got, look, someone's replied to him. Reading the news about the Derby businessman in a bank, followed in by a Somali, tried to take his money, and deceased him with a knife. It says in court he had to have an interpreter. Oh wow! Look, thought it was a pack, and then a picture of a key. See, because he thought it was Pakistanis, but what it is, it's basically, how can I say it? They're dark skinned, so they're probably like Somalian or something. Either way, but they're Muslims. It says, where is the energy for Somalis face to face, lad? So someone's come back at it. Somali.pirate. So this is what it is. You see, this is your new chase you down the street. This is the new version of it. Can you imagine the description of the offender? LMAO, 75% of the population would be under suspicion. So he's trying to say 75% of the population of England is walking around like this. See, they're over exaggerating. But this is, to me, this is designed because, like I say, you've got these people that go around filming these people moving into hotels and going, look, it's a disgrace, taxpayer money. Yeah, but why don't you go and chase your politician with the camera? Why are you chasing those people? It don't really make sense. The same thing has happened in Ireland. And like I'm sure it's pretty much happening over Europe, but obviously the European videos, they're not going to be speaking English. So I'm watching the UK ones and the Irish ones. So you got this guy now here. He's my husband. He says, no, he's my husband. No, he's my cousin. So they're taking the mick out of them. And what it is, growing up in this culture, woke up, I was drunk, and I realized where I am. We've actually learned a lot of these things that these Edomites have done. So I understand the jokes that you're getting at, but then I understand how they look at you. Now, this man's had 72 replies, but they're not all there because a lot of them have been deleted. When you go down, there isn't 72 replies. But you got here, look, beat me to it. So this guy, look, here comes another racist, cracking joke with the first racist. Yeah, he beat me to it. Says, no, he's my husband and my brother. So again, look, next one sounds like Amnon and Tamar in your Bible, mate. In your Bible, mate. And then it says, the next one says, sounds more like Allah and Aisha, pal. So these are these Edomites. Look, laughy face. This one here says, it says bloody bloody. He's obviously copying the accent, right? Bloody bloody. He's my cousin, brother. No, he's my uncle, and it's Hoke Papa G, my uncle brother. So he's just clearly taking the mick. This is Birmingham, somewhere in India, right? So basically, it's just a bunch of people, right? Just taking the mick. I got my comment in the minute. I'm gonna read it. So this is what I'm saying about the East versus the West culture. You know, you have this Eastern type of culture over here. Now, I'm not trying to say, like I say, Muslims, they don't have the truth. But their philosophy of life is more of an Eastern set, where, you know, what you're surrounded by, what you grew up in over in the Western side. You know, you've got the Americas. I'm in the UK, still classified as a Western. You know, the culture. See, now it doesn't really matter about the geography. You know, what you've got with the beast system is they tried to put that westernized system over the globe, just like Hellenization. You know, Hellene, you know, when Apostle Paul was talking about Jews or Greeks, he was talking about, you know, Israelites that were Hellenized in terms of Greeks, Israelites that are Israelites, but are living in other cultures and have assimilated those cultures, and they're working off that pretty much. So it's the same thing today, but now it's about the westernized. See, the West, that's why I'm making this point. You know, you're a Hebrew Israelite. You know, you got to have that Eastern mentality. You know, you got to kind of understand what that is compared to the mentality that you're in and around now. So before I go into a little bit deeper there, so you go back to Hebrews 4 and 12. It says, for the word of the Most High is quick. It's awakening. It's going to wake up somebody's spirit when you use it correctly. Even if their spirit isn't righteous, you can still, you know, come with a powerful blow. It says here it's powerful. It says sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts. So we can use this word to discern their thoughts and the intents of the heart. We know who you are. That's what I keep saying. These people coming out on the comment boards are the same people in the 80s that would chase you down the street, basically. Then you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. You know, this is one of my favorite scriptures, but when you read it, it spells so much trouble for us as a people. But then you kind of wonder to yourself, well, why is this one of my favorites? If all it's just written is about how bad a time you're going to have. But for some reason it does that, because it just answers so many questions. Deuteronomy 28 and 48 says, therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So yes, you Israelites went through the slave trade system, but it doesn't just stop there. It says Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far. So we're serving our enemies. We're still under that captivity today, to this day, and that enemy is Esau. We're even the other nations around the earth. They have a higher stature than us, and in terms of being a nation, having some sort of government or structure or religion that people then classify as this exists in the world. People know the Hebrew Israelites exist, but they don't really want us to. You don't want the Hebrew Israelites to come around calling on Yahweh, Bashim, Yahweh Shai. So, but it says the Lord, it says Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far. It says from the end of the earth. It says as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. But the thing is, you see, so you can say, oh, you don't understand these people, but you do now because you've woken up drunk in their kingdom. And you said, well, where am I? I'm, now seeing straight again. The Most High has given me my senses back. You look around, you go, shit, I'm in an Edomite kingdom. I even sound like an Edomite. And that's where I would say to you, I'll go to people and I say, all right, pal, all right, mate. And that's what these Edomites do. Because we've grown up in their system. So, when it goes back to saying, oh, the most Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, everything we need, we have to go to these Edomites for. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, even in spirit and in mentality. Their thought is far from where ours is. They're trying to promote to you this westernized mindset, but before you got drunk, you had an Eastern mindset, which was way different to what these Edomites have. It says, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. All right, mate. All right, pal. It says, a nation of fierce countenance. So, you go through the slave trade, you go through 70 AD, and various other aspects. The MOTB is coming up, the time like time like never been seen before, Jacob's trouble. And that's going to be, you're going to realize this is a nation of fierce countenance. It says here, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. There's many aspects where you could show that to be these people. And it shall eat thy fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until be destroyed. It says, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And our people are destroyed 100%. Look around you. And the major part that destroys our people is the mindset. It's not the things around them necessarily. It's the mindset that the things around them turn their mind into. We're surrounded by these things the same way they are. But we have the Holy Spirit. It clears up your mind. All the cloud disappears. You start to see straight. You see clearly. But then you see the rest of our people, and they're lost. And the fact that you can't get them out of it, a major part is because they have a westernized mentality. The same way Apostle Paul was dealing with Hellenized people. He was going out there, basically going, fucking hell, these people are just all fucking Hellenized, a lot of them. And then every time he comes up and gets another Hebrew Israelite that's Hellenized, and he hits the same information, he's going to get the same questions back. He's going, you Hellenized people, this is why he just referred to them as a group. I go, well, because every time he's going over to them, he's got to deal with tackle them in the same particular way. You would tackle them differently, the way you would have to tackle a different groups of people, where they come from, what philosophies they have. You've got to approach them with the truth in various ways. So what it is, we now know we have the Holy Spirit. We're able to discern the thoughts and the intents of the heart, and we know who these people are. Like, he's my husband. No, he's my husband. No, he's my cousin. And like I say, the government are really pushing this from the background. They allow this, whether these people are paid to do this or not. But then you start to see all the the worms, coming out the woodwork. So, my job in this situation, because I don't represent these people in the video and I don't represent these people on the comment board, but I want to use the knowledge that I have from the truth to see if I can cut somebody's soul. So I came in, and then you see all these laughing comments, blah blah blah. They're having their fun, but then here comes me. It says, but you do realise that the number one culprit of UK domestic violence is the Caucasian man with a can of Stella, because they'll go on like, 75% of the country is immigrants. Well, it's not. If you drive out into the countryside and various towns, there's a lot of Edomites. They haven't gone anywhere. They're still here. Yes, you have more immigrants coming in from various nations, but don't you notice that they get chucked into small communities, into cities, and that's why they end up living like rats. They get that push you all into this small area, that small area, so on and so forth. You go out to the farmland, the countrysides, the beautiful parts of the UK. It's Edomites. The Edomites are living out there. But anyway, but it's all just an over-exaggeration. So I carried on saying, how can a race who gave you, so we talk about the Edomites, right? So this is what I'm doing now, is coming in with my reality check, my sharp sword, and I'm going to use it. I'm not going to just hack away and just throw things out there. I'm going to slice and dice my enemy, nice and neatly, and I'm going to package it so that you can't answer me back. No response. I don't want to hear a response. So to not hear a response, don't tell them you don't want to hear a response. Leave them with no choice but to not respond, because they can't. So I went on to say, how can a race who gave you world pollution, because that's what we got today, world pollution, who's in charge, the various industrial revolutions that we had, so on and so forth, says, who gave you world pollution? 27 genders. Before Esau came along, there was only 2. Maybe in ancient cultures they had androgynous gods and various different genders that they went to, but obviously it's the Edomites today who are basically promoting that and putting that on the earth. If you remove Edomites off the planet Earth today, there won't be no 27 genders. All of a sudden it will go straight back down to 2. And again, Donald Trump's trying to push that. It's part of the order out of chaos that they created. So how can a race who gave you world pollution, 27 genders, legal freedom to bum bandits, and that's all I'm going to say, a corrupt political system, a corrupt worldwide financial system, then go on to complain about others? And we all know it. They know it themselves. These Edomites that are working daily, they love to point the finger and say, it's your fault because you came over here and you did this and you did that. But what about where you came from? You got here by boat, you invaded, you took over, and now you're just claiming that you're fed up of other people doing the same. But it's all part of that MOTB, order out of chaos, digital identification. The government are pushing it. So it says the planet itself is dying because of you people. I mean, Esau ain't really got that power to destroy the planet, because he would if he had. He would have done it by now. But Most High is not going to give him that much power. But you play these people at their own game, and they love to throw comments out like that. Well, what happens when it comes back at you? Is it not you that's killing the planet? Supposedly. I forgot what I'm reading. Because of you people, yet you think anyone cares when you try to label other nationalities' issues. Sort your own people out before you point the finger at others and before you kill the ecosystem. And none of these people got nothing to say back. None of them will come back with nothing. And so then it goes on more. So now I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to go a bit deeper. I'm going to really cut you. And I'm going to open your eyes to the truth, because I'm just a witness. I see these people and I see these people. So I said, you know what? I need to go deeper than that, just to make sure that I get, with my sword, I penetrate that soul. So it says also, right? So I'm just making a comparison. Also, you laugh at these men, right, who make their women cover up. So that's what they do. So, we all know the jokes. In the UK, they'll call them letterboxes or ninjas. You got wrapped up from head to toe. You've only got the eyes. it becomes a joke. Now, like I say, I'm not here to defend them people. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. We have our own customs, so on and so forth. But what these people are, so I want to remind you, is closer to the east than what these people are. These Edomites, they're westernized, and you don't want to be westernized. Basically, it's not a good thing, and we're going to see why. We're going to look at it. So, but okay, so you laugh at these men who make their women cover up. It says, but they laugh at you. For what reason? It says, because your women in this Western society, right, will one day leave your sorry ass. It says, at the drop of a hat for a man with a bigger ding dong and a wallet than you. It says, then you end up crying yourselves to sleep with a half empty bottle of vodka in your hand, because these people don't have no spirituality. The West, tells you everything's okay, everything's fine, get along, but it doesn't really tell you how to deal with it when you've got problems. I'll go to counselling, take medication, and then you end up these. This is why if you live a Western society and bad things happen to you, there's a good chance that you'll end up crying yourself to sleep with a half-empty bottle of vodka in your hand. It says, because your independent, shot-calling woman told you that you're a waste of space before she left you. So this is a scenario that plays out every day in Western society. A woman will leave a man, and the man ends up broken. And then I'll put at the bottom here, Western society has turned its men into a bunch of simps. So what I just did is I just cut every single one of these men, because you let your woman. So next time their woman go on a Friday night says, I'm going out, and she got her titties all hanging out. Now you're gonna remember this, and you're gonna go, oh yeah, those people that I laughed at, who made their women cover up, they ain't got that problem. They ain't got that problem on a Friday night. So there's less chance of them leaving them, and so on and so forth, and having these marital problems. You go to the West. The West is a jungle. It's a minefield. You go meet a woman. You don't know what type of woman you're going to get, what type of spirituality she has, and you just got no clue. And then she'll leave. She'll just get up and leave you one day, because she's got this power. The power is given to her by the society. And so what the men do is they simp, and they play to it just to be able to get the woman, just to get their leg over. But it's a joke. So I cut every single one of these people here, and they all get to read that comment, plus more people that came, but not one of them had anything back to say. What are you going to say to that? What are you going to say to that? You can't tell me it's not true. That's how society works in the West. Like I keep saying, these people, they don't really have that problem like that, where their woman leaves them and their life breaks down, this, that, and the other. So then this other person came in, Deanna Williams, 7441 with a laughy face. So this person knows what I'm talking about. This one's, I thought it was three women. This one's just coming in with the laughy faces. But yeah, this is it. See, so what it is, you see, these Edomites are now starting to realize this is where like the fear is falling into them, because the world's changing rapidly in front of their eyes. They're ushering in a new system, but that involves breaking down the old system, and these Edomites are losing it, because in their own various countries and so on and so forth, they had their little corner, their little bit of peace. They could, live within this Edomite culture, but it's getting overtaken. It's to them, well, the way they make out, like it's been, so many immigrants coming in, they're spoiling it. It's like it's like a flood is coming in. But obviously there are various aspects to it where the government do promote it, they do make it easy, but they're trying to create a problem so they can eventually bring you the digital ID. We're heading to a new world, a one world, where crossing borders is going to be very simple. As long as you've got that device under your skin, you can be tracked all the way around the globe. Every payment you make, so on and so forth, it's all on that digital platform. So, but then obviously they got their 15-minute cities and so on and so forth. So if you're lower status in society, you're not probably going to be able to leave your 15-minute cities, and you're going to be told that everything you need is within local distance. If you go without that area, go outside of it, they'll switch your device off. You can't buy, you can't sell, you can't last. So But yeah, you see it all the time on these comment boards. These people, there was another one here. Where was it? Yeah, I'll just get into it. I mean, like this guy here, so I came in and I was like, because this guy, they was talking about vote reform, make our motherland great again. Now, what it is, you can't hit these Edomites with the Edomite talk. It's going too far back for them. But all I really want to do is shake up a few people on the comment board by giving them a bit of information that kind of makes them realize that we're onto you. And so, I've put here the motherland of Caucasian would be Caucasus in Russia. And I obviously said that from recent history of where they came from. Obviously, before that, they were around before that. They came from Edom, so on and so forth. But like I say, you got to work out what level of person you're dealing with, and realizing going all the way back to Edom, you're gonna lose. You're not gonna lose the argument, but this person's not gonna understand what you're talking about. So what you're saying then has no effect. So I want these people to be shook that we're waking up to this truth. We have this knowledge, and we've worked out who you are. We're not drunk anymore. Says so. I put the motherland of Caucasian would be Caucasus in Russia. The clue is in the name, right? Brit and Ish are Paleo-Hebrew words. They forgot to ask what they both mean when they emigrated to it and hijacked the land 500 years ago. So I just had to pause the video quickly, actually. I had to stop and just get out of this chair and move around. My back's starting to hurt again, but yeah, so basically the motherland, like I say, I'm just going back, obviously, only recently to 500 years. But I say this all the time to them. The clue is in the name, right? This is Brit and Ish are Paleo-Hebrew words. They forgot to ask what they both mean when they emigrated to it. So I do this all the time. I go on comment boards and I go to these Edomites and I say, well, if you're Brit and Ish, surely you should know the meaning of the word Brit and Ish. What do these words mean? Oh, well, I'm British. That means I'm from this place. No. You're named British because, you're from Britain. But what does the word Brit and Ish mean? And they don't answer it. And then I say, you know what? You forgot to ask when you invaded. And see, this is the reason I'm saying you don't want the Hebrew Israelites to come around calling on Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai. We have the spiritual sword. We have the word of the Most High. And we will get marky. We'll cut you with it. So he's come back with, so what are the Celts who have been here for at least 6,000 years? So this is what people do. They go, oh, we're the Celts today, and we've been here for 6,000 years. Well, evidence of the Celts exists 6,000 years, but you came along and assumed their identity, so you're not really the original people. The original European people are actually Japheth. But you go back anyway, I'm telling him now, look up Black King James and the Byzantine Kingdom, something they forgot to tell you at school. And then left us short for the Moors to take him, to show him that the Moors were in Europe in history, and they existed. 500 years ago, you man came from the Caucasus and assumed an identity that was already here. Google iconoclasm. So that's what I'm showing him. He's going on about his Celts. And what's happening here, you see, these people, they think they're clever because they deleted. I mean, maybe it's because of the language they use, but it wasn't just me hitting him back. He was hitting with stuff in between. So then I hit him back again. So you say this Celts are 6,000 years old, but the original Celts had different skin color until you man escaped the caves of the Caucasus and came by boat. So I'm going to keep rubbing it in. It says, which is ironic when we hear your people in modern times complain about incoming population. The Most High is bringing this society down, and there's division. Yahushua is here to bring division, and even amongst these Edomites, if Satan is divided against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? So I went on to say the Byzantine kingdom ruled Europe while you were in the caves. The real covenant men, that's what the word Brit and Ish. See, I didn't tell him, but I slipped it in there. But indirectly tell him that's what British means. Black King James, because I leave them questioning and wondering, because you're not really the people, and we're waking up. Black King James resided in Scotland, ruler of the British Islands, Covenant Man Islands. Commissioner of KJV Bible 1611. In your schools, your teachers refer to this period as the Dark Ages. Apparently, it was dark for you in those times. It says you have been hoodwinked by your own rulers, and now your empire is crumbling right before your eyes. Kingdoms come and kingdoms leave. It's part of the earth's history. You should be worried. But yeah, your Caucasian scholars know everything I said. They have the evidence in their museums, but they told you something else and committed iconoclasm. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. It's defacing of religious artifacts, so that you can't tell what particular race they are. It says to lift up your pride, but pride comes before a fall, and that's what we're witnessing now. So that's why Putin showed you pictures from the Russian museums of Black Jesus. Now, obviously, you know why I've put that. There's no point me putting Yahushua. You're going to lose this man. I'm not really trying to teach him the truth of Yahushua. He's not going to worship Yahushua, is he? But I want to cut him. I want to get Marky. I want to use the spiritual word, the sword, so the information I'm providing, I learned this from the scriptures ultimately. But obviously, for him to understand what I'm talking about, I had to use the Jesus word. But Adolf brought it out too. Adolf brought out the same thing that Putin brought out. The last time you managed to quash the mole from within, I should have said within your people, which was Adolf. This is to save your way of life. That's what they told you after World War II. We went to war to save your way of life. What does that mean? That means this Western society says, as per your war hero opinions. But now you've got Vlad to deal with, and he's packing nukes. Ooh, you people are so finished with rubbing our hands, waiting for your society to implode so we can assume our original identities. And that's what it is, you see. Esau has turned the world upside down, and the Most High's turning it back around. So that's why we, part of that is us having this truth. We are those men that have turned the world upside down with this truth. The prophets, the apostles of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, the true prophets. And then, so we're turning the world upside down. It starts with this word, and then it finishes with action from the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, especially with the day of judgment, the day of the Lord. So I went on to say, like I said, he is responding in between, but some of the message has been taken off. Even some of mine have been taken off. But it says that you're confused. So I'm trying to break it down for him because he keeps going on about these Celts. And he thinks because they were there 6,000 years ago, that means those Celts that are there today are the same people living in one place, having babies, never moved for 6,000 years. That's what they think. So I'm breaking it down. You're confused. I'm trying to use the sword neatly to dividing that soul asunder into nice little pieces. So to package it so you can understand it, for the person reading it. It says you're confused between your Caucasian history and other cultures. It says you are the original culture vulture. And that mainly I'm talking especially from the last 500 years since they came out of the Caucasus and took over the world, Christopher Columbus, so on and so forth. It says you take over and assimilate other cultures. You start off by not being the people, then you take over and assume their identity. You don't have your own. It says the original Australian was Aboriginal, the original American was Native Indian, and the original British were from the Byzantine Kingdom. How come your schools don't teach you about that kingdom? Why did they omit that from your history? The world was occupied by brown people until you escaped the caves of the Caucasus. That's why you call yourselves Caucasian, because that's the last time you were all in one place. So you'll find out how right I am when you die, because when everybody goes to the spirit world, they'll find out. Sometimes I get to that point where I just think, what, fuck you, man. When you go to the spirit world, you'll find out what I'm saying. Because like I say, he was coming back at me with comments, even though it looks like they're not there, because obviously they've been removed. It says you'll find out a whole lot more at that point. It says, believe me, and if you don't, it doesn't matter. You'll find out whether you want to or not. And then this guy comes in a few days later. LOL, that's not true. So this is all these Edomites have got. That's not true. So you say all this stuff, and then they just say that's not true. But they don't do any research. They don't look it up. But it's not true. So prove it. Prove that it's not true. So here we go. The Byzantines were Roman and Greek. So here it's happening all over again. Did not Apostle Paul go to, the you know Romans, Greeks, but these were Israelites living as people, other people in their cultures. So when he went to Greeks, he was going to Israelites that were Hellenized, living under the the Greek philosophy, if you like, the Hellenization. It's the same thing today, but now it's Westernization. So we're arguing with these same people, but this time we're arguing with them over Westernization rather than Hellenization. But the Byzantines were Romans and Greek. Yes, but the Romans and Greeks were Israelites. Obviously not the original ones. You have obviously the original Romans with Japheth. Edomite came in and took over. You had Jake up in there. So when Apostle Paul went to Romans, he didn't go to all Romans. He went to Israelites that were living in Rome as Rome, living like a Roman. And he went there and he said, "Now you're an Israelite. This is what it is. You have to ask them where does your family line go back to? Blah blah blah. What's your family name? Oh no, you know what? Do you realize you're a Hebrew Israelite? You shouldn't be living like these heathens. You should be living like one of your own people." So but the Byzantines were Roman and Greek. Oh, we've heard that one before, mate. It says it was the eastern part of the Roman Empire. They didn't even call themselves Byzantines. And I'll come back, bro. Look, you silly boy. Yes, East and West Roman Empire. West fell away. And then you guys from the West migrated to the Caucasus. Why do you call yourself a Caucasian if you were never there? Your basic logic has failed you. And this is where I'm cutting these Edomites, because I'm telling them, you called yourself Caucasian. We know you're Edomite, but you call yourself Caucasian. So if you're Caucasian, aren't you from the Caucasus? So did you not get here by boat? So why are you complaining about other people coming in by boat? And I'm not trying to fix anything or defend anything. I'm just adding to the mix. End of the day, I'm putting the truth out there into the ethos. Where I work at the airport, they've got many companies. There's one that I was looking at the other day. They're called Ethos Farm, and that's what we do. We take the truth and we put it into the ethos. So we farm the truth through the Holy Spirit, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahweh Shai, with the laborers. We put together these videos. That's the truth. All these comments, and we put them out into the ethos. It's all added to the mix. This place is done. It's finished. Everybody's got so many opinions, and you've got so many people trying to pull in different directions, especially these Edomites within their own kingdom, that's why the kingdom cannot stand if Satan be divided against himself. So and then what it is, you see here, there was other comments here where he was going, "Oh, you think you're clever, this, that, and the other," and I'm like, "Well, obviously, I just gave you this information, and all you can say is no, that's not true. But you didn't give me nothing. You came with the same dry argument. But the Byzantines were Roman and Greek. Well, we know from the scriptures, who Romans and Greeks were. Those particular Romans and Greeks. Obviously, they had, like I say, other Romans and other Greeks, Greeks, and Romans. But then you had Israelites." So he was like, "Oh, you're so clever," so I just came back and said, "Well, look, if you are so clever, what language is Jesus?" Because, like I say, he was hitting me with this clever question. So, what language is Jesus? That's all I want to know. You're so clever now. You said everything I said is not true. You've got all these answers. I'm going to ask you one simple question: what language is Jesus? And it's checkmate time. So it says you use the name Jesus in your handle name, because he's Judas Jesus, right? So what language is that, young man? Cat got your tongue? Try not to stutter. What language is Jesus? And then but what language is Jesus? Did you mean what language did Jesus speak? Now there's another comment that I put that they took away, and I said, no, I'm not asking you. I didn't ask you what language did he speak. I asked you clearly, what language is the word Jesus? And he never came back. You ain't going to come running back. Go running. I asked him one question. So I'm not clever. I know none of this stuff, even though I presented all my information. He had no information. He just said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Byzantines are Greeks and Romans. And that's that. And so then one question. I stumped you with one question. And you're asking me all this other stuff. You're trying to move the goalpost. No, just answer what I said. What language is Jesus. And he's like, do you mean what language did he speak? No, that's another thing. See, and this is the thing. You see, these people don't even know where we're going to go because we have truth. We can go into areas of the soul to cut you that you don't even know exist. Because we can take away from the lies, find the truth, and show you who you really are. And that's what hurts when you find out who you are. And these people are finding out. And all you can do is put this stuff out into the ethos. So, I do this quite a lot. I just go in there. I don't always go in that deep, but I just hit them with stupid comments and whatever else. I'm just trying to see if there's any more. Yeah, look, this one's going, oh, it's pretty racist, don't you think? Pretty racist, don't you think? So look, well said, lady. So this lady had a video moaning about how, people spoil communities, so on and so forth. Well said, lady. It goes on now. They shit on their own doorsteps, wreck their own community. So he's obviously implying, or Susan Smith here is implying that this complaint here was about foreigners. So here we go, another Edomite complaining about people coming in by boats. And look, GBs, people loving it. Then I come in. Yeah, okay, so I heard your complaint. Well, maybe it's time to head home to the Caucasus. Again, I'm not going to go into the Edomite level. They're just not going to get it. It's just a waste of my time doing it. So they call themselves Caucasian. They tick the box. When they fill out a form, they tick the box Caucasian. So I'm going to play on that and show you that we're not listening. Nobody's listening to your BS anymore. But yeah, maybe it's time to head home to the Caucasus. And I got 5 likes on that one. And LOL, she's talking about her own people. So he's trying to say, because my thing is, if you're Caucasian and you're unhappy, go back to the Caucasus. That's where you came from. Stop telling everybody else to get out. Maybe it's time. LOL, she's talking about her own people. So it was a bit of doubt as to who she was actually talking about. Yes, maybe, that's me. Maybe it's time to head home to the Caucasus. And then it just carries on, who's the they refer to? They're, what you on about, mate? What you on about? Blah, blah, blah. See, he's trying to deny what you want about me saying, I'll just go home to the Caucasus. See, it ain't tweaked in his brain that you are Caucasian. Then this one comes at me. Pretty racist, don't you think? So don't you think that's pretty racist? Maybe it's time to head home to the Caucasus. So what? That's racist. But when you tell everybody else to get home, that's not racist, right? And then so there was another response that I put in there before this, which they took down. And on that, I said that racism is the definition of racism is for one race to be superior to others. I said, well, you decide that at your World Cup. You have a World Cup. You decide which nationality is superior to others at the Football World Cup. And therein lies your racist tournament. So, get over it. And I wrote something else or whatever, it's all right for you to say one thing, but you don't like it when other people say it. And then because they deleted that, I had to come back again, just search the Moors, the Byzantine Kingdom, or Google iconoclasm, because at this point, there's no point going on. Like I say, when they pull off, sometimes they do pull your comments to take them away and whatever else, but obviously you've got to be careful. Yeah, what language is Jesus? Asked the guy, but like I say, this is the one that was kind of like brought me to make this video. When you look at what I'm saying here with the women, you don't want the Hebrew Israelites to come around calling on Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. We have a spiritual sword, which is the word of the Most High, and we will get marky. We'll start cutting you, dividing your soul asunder, and we'll say things that will penetrate your soul, and you won't be able to remove the wound. How do you take that wound away? That's exactly what happens. We live in the Western society. This incident I'm saying, where they laugh at these women for covering up, but they laugh at you because your women run out on you. And I don't think they quite realize that. When we switch to the kingdom of heaven, we go to much more Eastern philosophy. I grew up in the Eastern culture. You've got people are much more religious, much more God worshipping or God fearing. even if they got the names wrong, even if they got the wrong religion, they're still in that mindset where they want to fear a higher power and they believe that what they see around them is made by a higher power. These Edomites ain't got that. They ain't got that in their minds. It's all about themselves, their science, and what they can create. Deuteronomy 28:49 says, Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, and even in mindset and in spirit, they're from far, they're the opposite to you. It says from the end of the earth. And they took us to the uttermost parts of the earth, in Babylon the Great, America. But that Western philosophy reaches, like I say, even deep into Europe and Australia and other places of the world. It says, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And they say, all right, mate, all right, pal, this, that, and the other. It says, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favour to the young. And the next incident of that is going to be the MOTB. So I'm going to leave it right there. I hope that was edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rukak Wadash. And like I said, you don't want the Hebrew Israelites to come around calling on Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, because we will draw for that spiritual sword, the word of the Most High, and we will get marky. Shalom.